Hello, and welcome to the Intentional Entrepreneur Podcast, where I help online experts like you, make a full-time impact in part-time hours. I am your host, Lauren McLaughlin, and today's episode is all about how I balance being a business owner and being a mom too. So, if you are listening and you are a mom, maybe some of these challenges ring true for you. And if that is so, I'm going to be offering you 5 tips that is going to help you balance your life as a business owner and as a mom. And also a few different kind of things to think about, some shifts to make that have really made a huge impact for me as a business owner. So, some of the challenges that I see moms making or moms having is that some of us, especially if you're an entrepreneur like me, you want to give 100% to your business. You love your work, but you also want to give 100% to your kids. You really want to be there for them and you want to do a really great job as a mom. And I really, really love my work and I love my kids. And sometimes that can feel like they're pulling at one another. The other thing that I think is challenging is kids take up a lot of time. And if you're building a business, that can take up a lot of time too. So some of us wonder, like, how do I intentionally use my time so that I'm really supporting those two loves that I have in my life? And the last challenge that I think that we have, and that maybe you have listening, is that first off, work, I feel so good when I'm working. I don't know about you, but work feels tangible, work feels productive, and work has deadlines. So first off, I personally, and you might feel this way too, like I get this hit of oh, I did this, I got this done, and I'm feeling really good. I'm feeling productive and fulfilled. And plus, work has deadlines often. So sometimes it can feel like I've got this deadline looming, but my kids need me, and finding that priority, how to prioritize and balance both can be really difficult when you've got a deadline looming and your kids don't necessarily have that deadline with you. It's just an ongoing need that they have with you, right? So how do we balance those two things? So I know for me personally, and I don't know about you, but at first, I started my business as a side business. My first business was creating teaching resources. I started it because I wanted to be able to have more flexibility and spend time with my kids. But once I got into it and my high achiever self started to feel like, oh, I wish I had built this business before I had kids. It would have been so much easier had I started my business before I had kids. Like, I looked at business owners who built these amazing businesses before they had kids. And I wished that I had built it beforehand because honestly, I felt a bit resentful that I had to spend time with my kids, which wasn't good. But I had this duality of I wanted to spend time with my kids and be a good mom. But I also felt like, oh, it would have been so much easier, that I hadn't have been balancing both had I started it first. But I really shifted with that because I heard this from a coach once and I really loved it, is that for her, she feels like having kids is actually her superpower. And maybe you can relate to this too, because kids really get you to focus in on your priorities and get your job done. Like, I could have wasted so much time just fiddling around building my business before I had kids. But when I had kids, I only had so many hours. So I needed to really make sure they counted. So I started to really let that go when I started to see the flip that there is actually a superpower when you have kids. So, but if that's you, I can totally, absolutely relate. So let's first think, before I get into the strategies, I've got 5 strategies that I think are really going to be useful for you. Number 3 is my favorite. I have a couple of mindset questions for you because I think that sometimes, yes, there's the strategy, but also I think it's how we're even looking at what balance looks like that can be the source of our struggle. So the first question that I would love for you to think about, you can think about it as you're listening. Maybe you're doing the dishes, maybe you're driving right now. Later, if you want to pause the podcast, if you're the kind of person who likes to journal, you can do that too. But here, I have 2 questions for you. So the first is, what does a good mom look like to you? What does a good mom look like to you? So for me, I know that I used to feel, I don't know if ashamed is the right word, but I used to feel bad that I guess ashamed that I was so ambitious because the model that I had of what is a good mom was my own mom. And she's so loving and so caring and so nurturing, just naturally. Like she loved teaching grade one. And I thought that I needed to be like that to be a good mom. And I used to feel so bad that I wanted to work, that I wanted to build a business, that I wanted to do both. And that shouldn't I just love to take care of my children? Like that I shouldn't get this fulfillment out of trying to build something and be really like achievement oriented. When I was able to start letting that go, that I could see that I was a good mom in different ways, that really made a big shift for me. So for me, for example, a good mom is really being able to be present and patient with my kids and take them on fun adventures. Like today, I mean, the balance is like, I'm going to be really truly honest right now. The balance is real. It's a Sunday at the time of this recording. I don't usually work on Sundays, but I'm getting in this new rhythm of podcasting and I didn't record an episode this week and I needed to record an episode. But I also really wanted to take my kids to this really fantastic fair that we have going on with rides and everything. I knew they would love it and they did. And I also wanted to see my mom because I love to spend time with her, with my kids. So I did that in the morning. And I'm seeing my mom with my boys this afternoon, and I'm literally making 20 minutes right now to record this podcast episode on a Sunday. So for me, the thing that really matters with my kids is that I have quality time with them, that I'm taking them on adventures, that I'm spending really present time with them, that I'm enjoying them, that I have the patience for them. I don't need to spend all of my time with them, which is what I used to feel like I did to be a good mom. So the first question for you is, what does a good mom look like? The next question is, do you feel like it is actually possible for you to be a great mom and run a great business? I'm going to say that again. Do you feel truly, when you think about it, that it's possible for you to be a great mom and run a great business? Because if you have a subconscious belief or a limiting belief that I can't be a good mom and run a great business, you're going to have a conflict every time you grow. You're going to start to feel like, oh, but what if I'm not being a good mom? What if I'm letting my kids down? And they're going to be kind of conflicting with one another. So I'd really love for you to think about, does that feel possible for you, or does that feel hard or heavy? For me, it absolutely does. And so for me to make choices that go into the few tips that I'm going to share with you, it really is possible for me. And it feels very easy to be a good mom and to be a great business owner. It might be a little bit slower to build my business, but I feel like I can really do both. And so that I would really encourage you to consider, do you feel like it's possible for you to be a great mom and to run a great business? Because I know from a lot of the entrepreneurs I've talked to, not everyone feels like that. Like sometimes that can really come up for us. So think about that. Does it feel possible for you to be a great mom and run a great business? For me, it does. But one that came up for me is it felt irresponsible to run a great business and build my business and be a good mom. So really starting to think about what are some of the thoughts that you might have that could be getting in the way of you achieving that balance that you are maybe looking for. Okay, let's get into my 5 tips to help you. And this is how I balance my business and motherhood. And when I say balance, I think it's a loaded word. I think of it as like over like a week or over time. Not every day is balanced, but overall, I feel like I spend time on my business. I spend time with my kids. I spend time on myself. So I do feel balanced, but it's not going to be the same every day. Okay. Tip number one. Tip number one is to prioritize every single week what your priorities are as a mom and your priorities are as a business owner. So setting 1 to 3 priorities for each. I usually set 1 with my kids and 1 to 3 for my business. So I'm going to share, these questions were such a game changer for me. They came from the Lazy Genius. So I'm going to mention her here. There are 3 questions, and these were such game changers for me to be able to really prioritize. And I prioritize absolutely every week, all the time. So here the questions are. what could matter, what does matter, and what matters most. So you take a list. What are the things that could matter for you this week? And then you drill them down to what does matter of that list. And then you look at the things that matter the most. And when you have those priorities and you get in the habit, it can help you get let go of things. So for me this week, for example, today, I really wanted to record this podcast and I really wanted to have a really awesome time with my kids at the fair. I really also wanted to clean up my kitchen well. But that just wasn't a priority for me. So my dishwasher is still not emptied and there are still dishes in the sink and I'm okay with that. So prioritize what could matter, what does matter, what matters most. Tip number 1. Tip number 2 is to plan out your week. So if you are new to me and you haven't listened before, I highly recommend that you check out episode 2, where I talk all about planning out your week. But I always work about a 20-hour work week, sometimes 15, depending upon when my kids need me. Every once in a while, it might go to like 23, 25 hours if I'm really launching something, but by and large, it's 20 hours a week, but every hour is accounted for and I've planned out my week. So I highly recommend it. Plan out your time. You can really maximize the time that you spend in your work when it's planned out. Number 3 is to set up your routines and don't worry about getting them perfect as you go to set them up. So for example, today I'm getting in the habit of creating a new podcast every week, and I've started to batch them. But this week, I'm getting in the habit of it, and I realized when my VA said, "Hey, where's your podcast for this week?" and I didn't have one. I'm not going to beat myself up about it. I'm like, right, this is a new routine. I'm just going to do it on the weekend. I rarely work weekends, but if I need to, I will. Another example is when I started exercising again, like in a real way, like not just at home, but when I started going to Zumba classes. If you follow me on Instagram, you know I love Zumba classes. The first time I went, it felt really hard to go because it was in the evenings, there was t-ball practice and bedtimes and dinner, and I didn't know how to make it all work. And instead of trying to like plan it out perfectly, I was truly 20 minutes late for my Zumba class and I was okay with it. I felt a slight bit uncomfortable that, I was being rude or something, but ultimately like that wasn't my priority. It was just to get in the habit of this new thing. And it got easier and easier over time. And now I'm able to make it there on time. But when you create a new routine for yourself, don't worry about doing it 100%. Don't worry about doing it perfectly. You can perfect it as you go. But when you have routines that really reflect what your values are, and I'm going to share my favorite one as tip number 4, that's going to really help you kind of take the pressure off. So I prioritize my week. I have my routines that reflect my priorities. And when I'm starting to set something up that's new, I think about, okay, what really matters here? So when I think about my exercise routine, the only thing that really mattered for me is that I was able to take care of my kids and that I just started going to exercise. It wasn't like it needed to be absolutely perfect. And then over time, I got to, be able to make it there on time and make sure lunches were made and all that kind of stuff. But it wasn't about being perfect at the right off the get-go. Okay. So that was tip number 3. Set up your routines. Don't worry about it being perfect. And if you want help with this, do DM me because this is one of the things that I help entrepreneurs with. I might even make a freebie about it one day. So if this is something that is helpful for you, useful for you, please send me a DM at I am Lauren Monique on Instagram. I would love to hear from you. Okay. Step number 4 is special time. So nearly every day, I have as part of my evening routine, special time with each kid. So that's basically, it started out as 10 minutes. Now it's usually about 20 to 30 minutes with each kid every day, where we spend time, like I put my phone away and we'll do science experiments or make cookies, or my 6-year-old is really into playing chess right now. So having a special time for my kids every day really allows me to feel so much less guilt when I have to work or when I have to do something for my work, because I know I'm going to spend that quality time with them. So having special time every day, even if it's just 10 minutes per kid, can make a huge, huge difference on your guilt. And also, your kids don't feel like, are you done yet? Are you done working yet? Are you done working yet? Because they know when their special time with you is, they don't have to fight for it. And then tip number 5 is to make sure that you're taking time for you. Some of the entrepreneurs that I have worked with before, we know this, but like if you're a mom, and I have definitely been guilty of this, you feel like, oh, I've got no time for me. I'm so done in and I'm really tired. But if I don't, spend some time reading my book or watching TV right now, I'm never going to do it. So you end up stealing time away from your sleep. And this makes everything so much harder. We know it, but sometimes at the end of the day, we have the least amount of reserves left for decision making because decision fatigue. So if you can decide right off the bat that you're not going to spend your time for you when you should actually be sleeping, if you can make time for you every day or every week, that has made a huge, huge difference for me feeling like I can be a good mom and a good business owner. And I mean, it's so simple, but I don't think I gave myself permission to do that until probably October of last year. And I've been in business, like I've started my business, a side business, but I started running my first business in 2018. I don't think I truly allowed myself to make time for me and my business and my kids until just last year. So I highly, highly recommend creating that routine and thinking about, are you actually spending time, allowing time for you? Because when I allow time for myself to like exercise, to do little fun things that I enjoy doing, honestly, I mean, I love my work. So usually it's business related, some sort of business book or something like that, but something fun that I enjoy doing. That makes me a way better mom because I feel like I can actually give to my kids. I've got more patience and it makes me a better business owner. So let's recap the 2 mindset questions and the 5 tips to end out this episode. So, mindset questions were, what does a good mom look like to you? And do you feel like it's truly possible for you to be a great mom and run a great business? And my 5 tips were: 1, prioritize what matters most for you as a mom and for a business owner every week. Number 2 is plan out your week, your work week. And honestly, I even plan out and do my priorities on Sundays usually for my kids. So I plan out my week for my business and for my mom life. Number 3 is set up routines and don't worry about them being perfect. You can perfect them as you go. Number 4 is create special time, a routine that you have with each child so that you have a specific quality time with them every day. And number 5 is make sure that in part of your weekly or daily routine, that you allow time for you. And this is so much easier said than done, but making time for you will help. It's helped me immeasurably be a better mom and a better business owner. So I would love for you to give yourself that permission too. So I hope that this episode was helpful for you. If you are in that feeling of, I feel guilty, or I find it hard to balance both mom life and business life, I absolutely understand. I think we can all get it if we are business owners and moms, but I would absolutely love to hear from you. Let me know if you found this episode useful, what your takeaways were from it. I would love to hear from you. Again, my Instagram handle, we'll link it up in the show notes, is I am Lauren Monique on Instagram. So I hope this was helpful for you, and I will see you for another episode next week.